Traveling is about experiencing different cultures, right? Usually includes traditions, customs, and the way of living of a given area or a given place. For many people, there is one thing that's even more important than all of that, and that's trying new cuisine. So as you're traveling around the world, you're likely going to come across textures and flavors that you never knew existed. And worse yet, you're probably going to come across animals that you never thought that you'd see on a plate. I'm really talking out of experience here because I've tried everything from deep fried scorpions to bulging chicken testicles. Never even knew chickens had testicles. But regardless, there's a multitude of things that I'll end up trying, which include, heartbreakingly of all, shark fins. And just for the record, it doesn't taste of a fucking thing. It's such a waste of money and a waste of a life and isn't worth the devastation that it causes. But yes, I tried it too, I'm a hypocrite, I go yourself. Through my many hours of watching countless travel documentaries, there was an act that I came across quite often that I've always wanted to try, and that's eating snake meat. Many of you might know already, but I lived in Taipei for about 3 years, and Taipei is quite a progressive and modern city compared to the rest of Southeast Asia. Despite that, Taipei still has its fair share of seedy activities hidden beneath the surface. Within the city's oldest district survives a practice that used to bring onlookers from far and wide, though today it seems more like an antiquated part of yesteryear that belongs in the tales of history. So welcome to Snake Alley, where you can sample some freshly prepared snake meat as well as drink glassfuls of snake blood and venom. So in this guide I'm going to show you everything you need to know about Snake Alley, a bit of its history and why it earned such a dodgy reputation. But before we get to all of that, we need to wind the clock back to 18th century Taiwan, when the small settlement of Taipei was first formed. So the Wanhua district of Old Taipei was actually the first neighborhood in Taipei and was first established by the original immigrants from Fujian province in China. So during that time, rival clans of immigrants would battle it out with each other for superiority. Eventually, those sowed the first seeds of what would later become an air of criminality that survives and lingers in the air to this very day. So since then, the district has been home to a number of practices which many people would prefer to leave behind. So for decades, this district has been known as the seedy underbelly of Taipei's organized crime. So in its heyday, the region actually boomed with porno stores and brothels coming out of every corner, and they were particularly favored by American GIs. Who else could it possibly fucking be? Who would often come to Taiwan for a little bit of R&R during the Vietnam War. It's pretty much a similar story to what happened with the geisha culture in Japan. And I also happen to make a video about that, so if you would like to check that out, bing! Right there. Now, technically, prostitution is legal in Taiwan and is only permitted within special zones, which have to be established by the government somehow. Yet, no official special zone or district has ever been established because what politician in their right mind wants to endorse a prostitution zone or a red light district? Well, that's all well and interesting, but we're not here to discuss how you can get your sucked in a Taiwanese brothel from an aging grandma. And yes, by the way, most of these ladies are in their 50s and 60s. From this sordid neighborhood of debauchery and crime came one of the most fascinating spectacles anywhere in this city. That was the live slaughter and later consumption of snake meat. Snakes were once skinned alive before crowds of stunned onlookers, before later then being turned into a numerous number of dishes and wines which would be consumed and served in a number of restaurants along the streets. However, because of the growing public concern about the welfare of these animals, the practice was outlawed in the early 2000s. As a result, the alley today is a shell of its former glory, having lost much of the mystique and glamour that once came with it, much like the aging prostitutes that still frequent the area. Though the public show no longer exists, the eating of the snakes is still done. In fact, there are 2 restaurants that still offer this very unique service. Now, you might read a couple of articles online that claim that all the restaurants have been shut down and they no longer exist, but that's just false. I know that for a fact, as I have been there. I have eaten snakes in this restaurant myself. Now, as I said, only 2 restaurants still serve this unique cuisine, and they do offer quite a bit of variety. How would you prefer your snake to be served, sir? In a soup, or would you prefer it to be pan-fried? How about a side of bulging testicles? And really, yes, people in Taiwan do eat them, they're horrific. And of course, why not wash it all down with a refreshing glass of deer penis wine? Now that's all very well and good, but we know the real reason that we clicked on this video and why we continue to listen on this far. You want to drink snake blood, right? I thought so. And don't you worry, they offer this service too. If you order a set, you're likely gonna get some kind of dish, usually snake soup, along with a multitude of shots with unrecognizable liquids sitting inside. They include shots of snake blood wine, which is the biggest glass that you will get, along with snake venom, snake penis wine, snake bile, ginseng, and a Chinese medicine in that exact order. But before you start caning them down like a knight in Zakynthos, there's actually a few steps that you need to follow. So first you need to drink half of the snake blood wine. Then you take one of the shots and empty it into the glass. You only drink half each time until the entire thing has gone. So the real question is, why do people even do this? Well, like with any good Asian food stuff, it does come with its own mythology and some unsubstantiated health benefits. At best, Chinese medicine can be a bit dubious, and at worst, it's just complete bullshit. There's not exactly a lot of scientific evidence backing up these mystical claims. So why must withered old men consume rhino horn to bring back to life and resurrect their own sexually depraved horns, even though there's already a perfect blue pill solution out there? So sadly, snakes also fall victim to these fabled tales. Snake meat is said to be able to alleviate a fever as well as being able to detox the body. It's said that they also help treat skin conditions and apparently pretty good for your eyesight too, even though you don't tend to see snakes around Taiwanese opticians, funnily enough. However, the alley's booming snake meat market went perfectly hand in hand with another flourishing industry in the area: filthy hooers. It was claimed, just like many other animals that have a spiritual juju apparently attached to them, that snake blood can boost the male libido and give a man a stiffy hard enough to cut through diamonds and prepare themselves for a night of raucous STD exchanges. It almost became customary for punters to pop in for a quick shot before going over to a brothel and giving a haggard old lady a shot of her own. Now you might be asking yourself, how in the hell are you even able to eat snake venom? By its very nature, it should have the power to kill, or at the very least give you a bit of a dicky belly. So it turns out you actually have 2 levels of protection. First off, for venom to have an effect, it must be injected somehow into the bloodstream, hence the snake's very bitey nature. So swallowing venom, in theory, shouldn't affect you. Pretty cool, right? Second of all, the proteins that make up the venom are actually broken down by the ethanol that's found in the alcohol which it's served in. Thus, it should then become non-lethal, meaning more or less it's completely safe. That's not to say that it doesn't have an effect though. Some people, including myself by the way, did feel a small sense of dizziness, and some others claim to even have a bit of paralysis. Imagine like you taking a Xanax or maybe 1 too many sleeping pills and you feel a little bit lightheaded. Other than that, you only get a little bit of a buzz and that's pretty much it. Now, while some of you would have clicked on this video out of morbid curiosity, others would have done anything but, claiming this video to be cruel, sadistic, and downright disgusting. The very idea of eating a strange creature like a snake is enough to put most people off. First and foremost, vegans would be absolutely outraged at the idea of eating any kind of animal, regardless of what it is. And they may be right. Following the basic hypocritical logic, I am a huge animal lover, but I love the taste of them more. I completely understand the outrage that a vegan might feel over this act, or eating of any animal for that matter. That being said, I could bring up points about the death and destruction of animals and habitats that are caused by the increased farmland that are needed in order to provide more food for these particular vegans. But that's an argument for another day. My real issue is with those individuals out there who make up the vast majority of you, by the way, who will happily devour a cute little farm animal, but yet turn your nose up in disgust once an unconventional animal is served on a plate. Westerners are far more squeamish than any other place on earth. That's why chickens are usually served with their feet and heads cut off, because we don't want it to resemble anything like the cute animal it once was. And that's why we call it black pudding instead of the blood pudding it actually is. Which brings me on to my next point. Just because you find something to be weird doesn't mean that everyone else does. Most cultures around the world eat a vast amount of animals and creatures and foodstuffs that we never even would imagine. And additionally, they eat every single part of the animal when we would just throw it out. Plenty of cultures around the world eat snake, and even though of course along this street it's a little bit of a novelty, it still exists. Most notably, it still occurs in places like Vietnam, and I actually visited one of these places, which will come up in a future video. The point is that this is still a small part of Taiwanese culture and thus should be experienced. It's one of those experiences that we yearn for as travelers. It's a cultural experience. It's a one-of-a-kind experience. It's one of the reasons that we travel and explore and want to learn new things outside of our own comfort zone. This is exactly the type of thing we travel for. And there you go, that's everything you need to know about Snake Alley. Thank you so much for sticking around as long as you have. Please like and subscribe, that really helps out the channel a lot, and I will see you next time.